I'm going to start with the UCRP, University of California Retirement Plan overview, talk about the different facets within the retirement plan, talk about your pension, how it's calculated, what you can expect. We'll go over the 403B, some of the new limits as of 2023, eligibility requirements. 457, we'll do the same. Also talk about the DCP. There's been some changes both within the 403 and the 457, particularly with after-tax contributions and Roth contributions. And then we'll look at all the investment options, some of the pitfalls, some of the things I think you should consider when you are selecting your different funds. And then we'll bring it all together at the end with just some overview on RMDs, some people call them MRDs, that you can expect in retirement, and some things you should consider when you get close to that final retirement age. All right, so jumping right into it, probably the single best benefit I see as being a UC employee is the UC primary benefit, which is the pension plan. If you look nationally at the amount of private employers that still offer a pension, it's, I think, just under 3%. It says today 22% of American workers participate in a pension, but that's because the largest employer in the country, the United States government, through FERS, Federal Employee Retirement System, offers a pension. All of your military have a pension. So if we take away government sector and educational institutions, it's less than 3% of folks out there actually have a pension in retirement. So you are some of the lucky few. So let's talk about what that entails. There are several different tiers based on when you began your employment at UC. Specifically, the tiers that modified the pension significantly in 2013, 2016. I won't go into the facets of each one because I'm going to give you a website you can go into. But let's discuss how your pension is determined, right? So it's determined based on the age of the date of your retirement, the years of UCRP service credit, and then what's called the HAPC, or the highest average plan compensation, which I believe is the last 3 years of your working career at UC. And that determines what's called the BRI, or the basic retirement income. These figures you can get from I believe it's UCOP, or I have the link here at the end of the presentation that you can take down, and they can estimate these for you as you're approaching your retirement. So what else does the UC pension allow for? Well, it does allow for a lump sum cash out. It's a one-time lump sum payment, meaning they do a calculation of life expectancy and what your basic retirement income would have been, and then they determine what that lump sum would be at a present value on the day that you retire. You can elect this instead of lifetime monthly income. It's best, again, on the present value of the retirement income you would receive over your life expectancy. And it's available to the 1976 tier members, safety, and 2013 modified tier members, but not available to 2013 or 2016 tier members. One of the things so I often get the question, when would I consider taking a cash out lump sum? Well, one of the times you may want to consider it is if you have a health issue or something because again, if you think about your pension, it's predicated on life expectancy, or the lump sum cash out, is on life expectancy. But if you have some type of health issue, or you have history in your family of not living what would be considered normal life expectancy, then you may want to consider a lump sum that will leave more for your heirs, or you'd be able to spend significantly more in what we call your golden years, meaning the years that you are going to spend more in retirement than you would necessarily if you were living to be in your 80s and 90s and still getting the basic retirement income. All right, so issues with taking the lump sum, well, you forfeit other benefits, health benefits. You're not eligible for the health benefits within UC. You're not eligible for the basic death benefit and the survivor and contingent annuitant benefits, which is that 25% that's left for your survivor or contingent annuitant benefits. Your sick leave is not converted to service credits and calculated lump sum, and it's more restrictive return to work rules. Basically, I don't think you can be more than a 20-hour work week employee if you take the lump sum. So when in my history have I seen people take lump sum cash outs? Let's say that you have a husband and wife and both work for UC. One takes the basic retirement income to retain the health benefits for the two, and the other one takes the lump sum so they can spend more in their golden years of retirement than getting that basic retirement income all the way into their 80s or 90s where they're not going to be spending. I often talk to people about what retirement really looks like. People think of retirement as this, this straight line that goes up like this as far as your spending due to inflation, and that could be not could be any more incorrect. Let's say you retire at 65, your spending goes up and then hits a peak, and then it comes down because you're not as mobile, you're not doing as many things, you're not traveling the world anymore as you become less mobile, and then at some time later in life, potentially it spikes due to health events. So that's often a consideration, I think, if people are going to take a lump sum and you do have health benefits from another retirement plan, it would be to be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor, 30, 40 years of work history, and maybe you have a 10, 15-year really good run in retirement, maybe 65 to 80, where you're traveling the world and doing all that. If you take the basic retirement income or the pension, you can't accelerate those payments, and that's essentially what you are doing when you take the lump sum. So those are some of the instances where I have seen people take the lump sum. I would say the majority of clients I have or have spoke with, elect for the basic retirement income because they're usually the only person that works for UCSD in the family. You can take that lump sum. Don't think you have to pay taxes on the entire amount right away. You can roll it into an IRA, and that would be the way that most people would take it. Or if you continue to work in another employer, you can roll it into their 401k plan as well. And it is an irrevocable decision once you've done that. So the UC pension details are right there at the myucretirement.com. That's where you go and you can read all the different tiers and which one you are part of and what the summary plan description is there. Let's talk about some other sources of retirement income. So again, we talked about the pension. Now we're going to talk about the different forms of defined contribution plans you have. So you got the 403B, right? 457B, and then the DCP, right? In 403B, 457, the numbers just correspond to portions of the IRS tax code. This is a supplemental UC retirement savings program, meaning that it allows you to supplement your pension plan and save for more in retirement. So let's talk about the DC plan first. What is it? It's so this changed a little bit from the past. You used to be able to do a pre-tax on some of these. The DC plan offers an after-tax account that lets you add to your retirement savings with after-tax money. You can access the contribution at any time. The contributions you can access at any time. And that's an important distinction because if you access the earnings first, they're potentially subject to taxes and early withdrawal penalties prior to 59.5 if not rolled over into a Roth IRA. Again, this is another great benefit. You're contributing after tax, and then you get the benefit of potentially rolling into a Roth IRA down the road. In addition, if you're a career employee prior to 2010, you previously made mandatory pre-tax contributions to this plan. So there are some of you out there that would potentially, just to back up for a second, UC retirement plans have gone through a lot of changes. Even in the time I've been working with UCSD since 2009, this is probably the biggest change I've seen because you used to get a pretty sizable match within this DC plan. That's no longer the case unless you are a part-time seasonal employee, temporary employee, non-exempt student employee who's not fully eligible for the primary benefit, meaning the pension. Then you participate as a safe harbor participant, automatically contributing 7.5%, right? But if you were an employee prior to 2010, you may have pre-tax DCP, so don't think necessarily you would roll into a Roth IRA that could create a large taxable event. So some of you that have been around for UC for a long time, you really want to be careful on the DC plan because you may have some pre-tax and you may have some after-tax depending on what you've been contributing. Just to continue the DC plan, you can contribute up to $66,000 in after-tax money to this plan in 2023. So you can really accelerate a really nice bucket of after-tax money in retirement, which is very helpful if you live in the state of California or you plan on retiring in California from a tax standpoint. And remember that your total combined and annual contributions cannot equal more than 100% of your annual compensation. And many of you may say, well, why would I ever contribute all my salary to an after-tax? Well, let's say you have a spouse that's working somewhere else and you can easily survive off of that spouse's income. Well, then maybe you might want to contribute as much of your salary, if not all of it, to a retirement plan, therefore allowing you to really accelerate your retirement savings if you can comfortably live off the spouse's income. So what is the 403B? Well, this is very similar to a 401k for those of you familiar with 401k. It's a retirement plan that lets you add to your retirement account with pre-tax and now also Roth contributions. Pre-tax contribution, remember, lowers your adjusted gross income, so it lowers your potential taxes. And those earnings are deferred. The earnings and what you put into it are deferred until you pull out of the funds in retirement, and then you pay ordinary income tax on both the gains and what you deferred from the beginning, because you've got the discount, or not the discount, excuse me, the deduction on the front side. So when you think about comparing, should I do Roth or should I do pre-tax? I tell people, most people that live in California, you're in the highest progressively taxed state in the union. And you really want, especially while you're fully working, especially if you and your spouse are both working full-time, and let's say your income's over 100,000 adjusted gross income, you're roughly paying 9% at the state level at the margin, and you're paying roughly 22, 23% at the federal level. So you're roughly a third of your salary is going away in taxes. I am a big proponent, if you're in that type of tax bracket, to make pre-tax contributions, assuming that you'll be in a lower tax bracket or possibly a different state or possibly a lower tax regime in retirement. If you are a much higher income earner, let's say you're a doctor, a professor, or dual income, and you're in the several $100,000 a year, you've got to go the pre-tax way. I hear all the arguments about, well, if I do after tax, then I don't have to pay in retirement. But especially if you're making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, highly unlikely you'll be taking those kind of withdrawals out in retirement, and you'll be in a lower tax bracket. So you're going to want to go with the pre-tax versus the Roth. This account is portable, 403B. Later in this presentation, I'll get over the limited investment choices within the 403B and 457. If, for instance, you're over 59 and a half and you have a fairly sizable sized 403B, and you say, hey, I want to diversify out. I want to, Ryan, I understand you have a covered call option strategy that really helps with risk on the downside, or I want to be able to invest in some alternative investments or something like that you can't do within the plan. You can do an in-service rollover of your 403B, meaning you can withdraw what you've contributed to your 403B prior to retirement and roll it into a self-directed IRA if you so decide to do that after age 59 and a half. It's called an in-service withdrawal. All right, so continuing with the 403B, some of the limits this year. If you're under 50, you can contribute up to $22,500 to the pre-tax. If you're 50 or older, there's this thing called a catch-up clause, and you can contribute up to $30,000 in 2023. Again, your total combined annual contributions cannot equal more than 100% of your annual compensation. Excuse me. Meaning if your annual compensation, if you're 52 years old and let's say your annual compensation was $28,000, you would not be able to contribute $30,000 to the plan, obviously, because there's not $30,000 there to contribute to the plan. All right. Just remember, early withdrawal penalties may apply if you take withdrawals before age 59 and a half, unless you leave UC or retire prior to the year you reach age 55. There's something called 72T where you can take equal distributions starting at 55 and not pay a penalty. But all the withdrawals are going to be subject to ordinary income taxes regardless, unless you do, of course, the Roth contribution, and then it wouldn't be subject to taxes. 457B, well, what is it? Well, the 457B is a plan retirement that lets you add to your retirement account with pre-tax and Roth contribution. So it similarly mirrors the 403B. The taxes on your contributions and any investment earnings are deferred, right? So similar to the 403B on a pre-tax basis, and with Roth contributions, you pay it now, and then you can withdraw in retirement. This account is also portable. You can normally roll part or all of your account balance to another employer or to an IRA or a Roth IRA. This one requires that you are no longer working at UCSD. So the 403B actually has a little bit more flexibility than the 457. So I always tell people, let's fill up our 403B bucket first, and then the 457 if you want to continue to add as much as you can to retirement. The limits on the 457 are the same, 22.5 and 30 for the catch-up if you're over 50. So very similar to 403B, just a little bit more flexibility in the 403B than the 457. And same thing as the 403B, withdrawals and rolls of the plan are not allowed while you're actively employed at UC unless you're age 59 and a half or older, and your withdrawals are normally subject to taxes unless you do a Roth contribution. So let's talk about when you're retired. What now? Well, this comes straight from Fidelity's advice: make managing your assets easier by consolidating your UC retirement savings accounts. I completely agree with this advice. I think when you get to retirement, you don't want all these different buckets and stuff in all these different places, particularly because it helps you monitor them more easily, things that you may or may not be thinking about, like simply your beneficiaries. Who's named as a primary beneficiary? Who's named as a contingent? Having, an IRA, a 457, 403B, and potentially DCP, all these different accounts, you have to make sure you know who your beneficiary is all the time. Your beneficiaries need to know if something, God forbid, were to happen to you, who to go to, what the accounts that you have. I think it's really, really easy to consolidate everything into an IRA or into one plan, and that way you know exactly where your investments are, you know what your risk is, you know what your downside risk is, your potential upside, you know your performance, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, you also know what your required minimum distributions are, and you can make those estimations pretty easily without having to add all the different accounts and wondering what the account values were on December 31st, et cetera. So this straight again from Fidelity, consider rolling over retirement savings from other employers into your 403B, 457 2C plan. And then they have a number that you can call and help. You certainly don't have to do Fidelity. There's many options out there. I encourage everyone to look at least at 3 different options, interview 3 different, if you decide to work with an investment money manager, that's fine. If you're going to do it on your own, I still would research, 2 or 3 different platforms, whether it's if I'm doing self-directed, so it's a Schwab or a Vanguard or something like that, I would still do, at least 2 or 3 based on the size of your accounts and what they offer. And most importantly, especially if you're going to self-direct, I think the single most important thing is understand customer service. We've had a lot of clients come to us from Vanguard in particular because their customer service lines usually, several hour-long waits, and particularly when they've had a death in a family or trying to change beneficiaries, they've had a lot of difficulty with the customer service out of Pennsylvania. So again, I would interview multiple sources and just make sure you know what you're getting for your money. So let's switch gears here, talk about the investment options within the different plans. First of all, the default option, if you don't choose anything as an investment strategy or super hands-off and you don't want to deal with it, you're going to get a UC Pathway Fund. And those UC Pathway Funds are simply a diversified mix of asset classes, and they're tailored specifically to a retirement date and specifically age 65, so that if you're 25 years old right now and you're contributing, they make them very aggressive, and you're 63 and you're contributing, they become very, very conservative. And what I mean by conservative is you get primarily bonds and maybe treasuries or very short-term instruments versus owning more stocks. And then move it for you over time. And professional managers are there, the professionally managed to stay on their target allocations. This is what they look like in reality. You can see if you have 45 years to retirement, which is the left side of this, the x-axis here, much higher in risk on the y-axis, and then as you get close and close to retirement, you can see how they change significantly. UC Pathway funds available in the retirement plan. You can see they go all the way out to 2065, and it's really easy. If your date of birth, and this chart's available on the UC site, so you can just look and see where your date of birth is and what the recommended pathway fund is. That doesn't mean you have to do that. If you want your investments to be more aggressive, let's say you're born in 1994, you don't have to do the UC Pathway 2055. If you wanted it to be more aggressive, you would just go to the UC Pathway 2065. So what if you want to self-direct and choose your own funds, or you want some specific things in there? Well, you've got this whole list of different funds that are available within the UC plan called the Tier 2 investments. And you also have a Tier 3, which is the self-directed brokerage at Fidelity, which you have to open yourself. And that gives you access to, a whole slew of ETFs and individual stocks and different mutual funds, almost all exclusively Fidelity funds. And there are costs associated with that. So make sure you do your due diligence on what the costs and what's available in those different plans. All right, so knowing what's in your funds, you can go and you can select on investments and then click on it, and you can start to look up some of these actual funds and what they are. You see social equity fund here, and you can see what it's benchmark off, what the fees and expenses are, et cetera, what the performance is. This is an older slide actually from 2021, but I added this new slide because I think it's really important when you choose these funds and you think, okay, I'm going to choose funds on my own, I'm going to diversify myself. Are you really, really doing that diversification or not? And I'm going to tell you right now, with these UC funds, as a financial advisor, my biggest concern, and I think this is a very good plan that you have at UC. It's very generous, particularly the pension. Sorry, I got a message here, and I was just Pam. We'll get right to it here. Combined to one from having both 403B and 404, you have to have a recommendation or preference on which one to use and the one to close. Pam, great question. So simple answer is, as I said, the 403B has more flexibility, but if you're maximizing both of them, you're going to have to wait until you're retired to combine them in an IRA, right? So my recommendation would be to roll over to an IRA because, first of all, if you want to self-direct, it's going to probably be a lower cost for you. Secondly, an IRA allows for direct charitable contributions. If you're charitably inclined, you cannot contribute to a charity out of a 403B, 457, 401k up to the $100,000 in deduction and not pay any tax on it. You can only do that from an IRA. So charitable contributions is a really, really big reason that most people I know go over to an IRA. Plus the ability to either self-direct or to have a full slate of investment vehicles in their retirement plan. Again, going back to, hopefully I answered your question there, Pam. Oh, you are currently retired. Thanks. Let me come back to that. I'm going to finish up here, and then Pam can address some of the other questions here at the end. So knowing what's in your funds, and I think this is really, really, really important and often overlooked, is understanding risk in your funds. If you look at this U.S. Social Equity Fund, and this is as of portfolio analysis as of 6/30/2023, so June 30th, 2023. Look at your top holdings: Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, NVIDIA, Tesla, Alphabet, Meta, Alphabet again, United Health, and JP Morgan. Look over on the right side, technologies, 34% or 1/3 of the fund. This is an extremely aggressive fund and would have been down with these type of holdings probably 30% in 2022. If you are currently retired and you're taking RMDs or MRDs, or that's coming up in the future, or you're simply taking money out of your funds on a monthly basis just to supplement your retirement income, these type of funds are ones that I highly encourage you to be cautious of, because when you have those type of big swings, and yes, it may look like it's up, great this year, it's up 15-20% when the S&P is only up 8 to 10. But it's because it's super concentrated in tech. And if at any point tech is no longer the leader, these funds are going to be huge laggards and really hurt you. And that's exactly what we saw happen in 2022, where the Dow was only down 8% because it was much more value oriented, and the NASDAQ was down 34%. Down 1/3 in your retirement accounts when you're withdrawing out of them is not a comfortable feeling. So just understand what's in these funds. And the other thing is, if you think you're diversifying your funds by owning a couple different funds, just look at the top 10 holdings here, and I'll go to another fund called the UC Growth Company Fund, and tell me what you see difference here. I only see two or three different stocks in this, but it's the same thesis. And in this fund, technology is 45.6% of the return, with NVIDIA, which has been a great performer this year, but was also down 60% last year, at roughly 13-14% of the fund. I'm going to have to pause for one quick second here to. All right, I'm back. Apologize for that. So just, again, knowing what's in these different funds, don't just select a bunch of different funds thinking, all right, I'm diversified because I own a bunch of different funds. This UC Social Equity, this UC Growth Company, and again, this UC Domestic Equity Index Fund, if you look over here on the right, this is as of 2021, but I looked at it again today and it was almost the exact same thing. This, again, is super heavy in tech, once again. So just be careful of what you're investing in. You don't want, here, I added the most recent 2023. You can see this has 30% technology in it as well. So just be very careful. Hopefully I've emphasized that enough, because just simply buying a bunch of, or having a bunch of different mutual funds in your retirement portfolio does not mean you're properly diversified. All of these funds, top holdings, are all the same thing. It's all tech and it's all large cap tech. And they all got destroyed in 2022 because of this overconcentration. So just be careful. Oh, that's what I think I put in here. This 2021, I wanted to show you these top 10 holdings, and then you go to 2023 in almost the exact same order of holdings. Meta just moved down a little bit and got renamed from Facebook. So bringing it all together, right? So kind of giving you some parameters around what you can contribute to the different plans, how much you can, the flexibility, again, if you want the most flexible of all the plans and you only plan on contributing, 20 or 30,000, whatever one of the maximums are, I would select the 403B because you got a little extra flexibility in there. If you want to go all out, then yes, I highly encourage you to put 403B, 457. I think I've been clear that if you, at an income level 100,000 or more, I would highly recommend that you take the deduction on the front side and defer the taxes, then try to stuff a bunch in Roth. It doesn't mean you can't do some, especially in DCP, do some after tax in there. I just think you need the deduction if you're a six-figure income earner, especially a higher income earner. So let's talk about some investing issues real quick just to go along with this, especially if you're self-directing. Remember, market pullbacks, 2022, perfect example. They can be very painful. No one likes to see the value of their accounts go down, but you got to remember long-term horizon, diversified asset mix, right? A longer-term horizon. Remember what you're investing for. You're investing for retirement that's going to last 20 to 30 years. It's not going to last 2 years. And it's not about the election that's happening next year. It's not about, unfortunately, wars in all parts of the world. These things have happened for the last 100 years, meaning elections and wars and all this noise. It's easiest and best to ride out, though, if you understand your financial situation and risk tolerance, and understand what your potential downside is. And there are a lot of tools out there. I'm sure Fidelity has some. We use these tools often to show our clients, exactly what your downside is and exactly what your risk is. All right, so let's talk real quick about some of the pitfalls, the mental pitfalls that we go through in investing. Avoid losses at all costs. That's called loss aversion. The good news is in today's world, and this is something that's not offered in the plan, another reason you may want to roll into an IRA, we're doing a lot of treasuries, short-term treasuries for clients that are getting 5 to 5.5%. And if you're doing it outside of a retirement account, just remember treasuries, if you buy a treasury mutual fund or a money market fund, and let's say the money market fund is paying 5% and the T-bill is paying 5%, which one's worth more to you? It's actually the treasury bill, because if you actually directly own treasuries in your account, that's a taxable account, you don't pay California state income tax on treasuries. You do pay it on CDs, and you pay it on money market funds, you pay it on mutual funds that own treasuries, you pay it on ETFs that own treasuries. You don't if you own the actual treasury. So that's a very big distinction in a taxable account. That's really good advantage for a California resident. I am the greatest, confirmation bias, right? Going back and being a little overconfident in investing because you picked NVIDIA and put it in your account. So don't fall for that bias either. Getting stuck on the first thing you see, another one of the biases. The breaking news problem or the recency bias. I think the biggest bias that we see in our practice is probably the herding bias. Everybody's going into this stock. I think that's exactly, they say that markets top when everybody thinks that stocks are going to go to the moon, right? And they bottom when everybody thinks the stock market's going to go to zero. All right, so just be careful of herding bias, and if everybody's invested in the same thing, who's going to be the next buyer? And then the devil, ambiguity aversion, and that's a perfect example of that is, hey, I've always had my money at UCSD because, that's where I worked my whole life, and, I feel safe in those funds. Well, I just showed you how some of those funds can expose you to more risk than you maybe are wanting to take in retirement. So just be aware of that and be aware of those different biases. So what is this RMD or MRD? It's a minimum required distribution, right? Must begin taking annual minimum required distributions after attaining age 72, right? For some, it was 70 and a half. It was increased to 72 during the Secure Act. And then if you're much younger like myself, it goes all the way up to 75. So it just depends on your age. All right. So I'm going to stop there and see if I can get to some questions. That's my email. If you have specific questions you wanted to ask but didn't want to share with the group, that's fine. Let me break out so I can see everybody here. And then I will open it up to questions, or if you wanted me to go to any specific slide and go over it, I'm happy to do that as well. I see there's a question in the chat. Ryan, okay, I am currently retired. So Pam, if you're currently retired and you still have your 403B and 457, you may want to send me an email. I can walk you through different advice on, if you want to consolidate into one or you wanted to look into different options. I'm happy to provide that advice at no cost. So if you want to just take down my email and shoot me an email there, Pam, I'm happy to address your individual situation. From Natalie Walsh in the chat. Thanks, Ryan. I have a TIA retirement plan from my previous employer. Now that I'm at UCSD and plan to be here for at least 10 years, should I consider moving my TIA over to UCSD or keeping them separate now better for that diversity? So that's a great question, Natalie. So here's, without knowing your individual situation, here's what I would tell you. I would say that that's going to depend on what your investment philosophy is and whether you want help with your investments or you want to self-direct. I am a big fan, just as the Fidelity said, is to keep consolidation. I've worked with many people over the years that have actually forgotten that they had retirement plans in different places because they bounced around to so many different places. If you roll into an IRA, one of the things you will be open to is you'll have many more investment options, the ability to work with somebody to help you with that. If you roll it over into UCSD, then you'll have the options within the UCSD retirement plan that you're probably familiar with since you're already working there. So that's a personal decision based on what you're looking to do. And you feel free to write me, Pam, if you'd like some further clarity on that or have more questions on that. So we got another new message. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for coming today. Again, if you have a question, feel free to just unmute yourself. I'll stick around here for a couple more minutes. That works, Vanya?
Yes, and thank you so much. I think you covered really great information. So thank you again for providing that. And if you'd like to go back to what Ryan spoke about, his presentation will be online in the next couple of days for you to review.
Yes. And I'll stick around here for a couple more seconds just because I need to. Anyone else want to unmute yourself or if there's anything in the chat?
I think that's it. Thank you so much, Ryan, once again.
All right, thank you so much. And I apologize to everyone for, I think I told Vanya it's the first time in 15 years of being at UCSD that I've fallen ill and had to delay in a presentation. And I appreciate everybody, first of all, your condolences, and second of all, being patient that I couldn't make it. So thank you, Vanya, and thank you everyone at UCSD. Any questions you have whatsoever, you have my email. Please feel free to email me any questions there, and I'm happy to do it at no cost. So take care, everyone. Have a wonderful Halloween. Happy Halloween.
Thank you. Bye-bye.